I'm going to share with you is an interview with a former student of mine. She's gone through something that I call a history lab, and I'll talk about a few moments about how to frame that. But what she's done is confronted an historical question. She's confronted the events at Wounded Knee in 1890. And she's been asked to determine whether the events at Wounded Knee were a necessary battle or an avoidable massacre. And so she's waded through 6 historical sources. She's done her source work. She's built her argument. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, as you listen to her, just jot down the kind of thinking that either she overtly displays or talks about, or the kind of thinking that she's had to do to get to the point that she is in the interview. She's going to tell you whether she believes the events at Wounded Knee in 1890 were a necessary battle or an avoidable massacre. I picked her for a couple of reasons. One, she didn't really love history, which is my challenge. It's our challenge. She didn't see any great value in history. But over the course of the year with me, her grades went up, the quality of her writing went up, her level of argument and support with evidence went up throughout the course. And so if you can get someone who doesn't see great value in the most important subject in the curriculum to find value, that's a positive. So as she talks about her interpretation of the events at Wounded Knee, jot down the kind of thinking that she's had to do to get to this point.
I drew the conclusion that it was a massacre, and using a lot of the evidence, you could see that most of the people that said that it was a necessary battle went along the lines of they've had previous encounters with the Indians, and most of those encounters were negative. One of the guys he was in charge of a reservation, and then when the dance became prominent and it started happening a lot, he felt threatened in his authority over the Native Americans, and because of that, he said it was necessary. But it's not necessary. It's just simply he felt threatened and didn't think they should be able to do their dance, but he had no reason to have any effect like that, or any war or anything. You're looking at a source, you need to know where they're coming from, how their opinion may be affected by their past experiences. They had no prior experience dealing with Native Americans. They had no experience in war or battle or any of those. And then when you went to the ones that said it was an avoidable massacre, they were generals, they had military experience, and if they're saying that it's not necessary, then it's not necessary, because they have more experience in judging battles and judging wars. The other two, they had absolutely no idea what they were doing.
Okay, she's definitely looked at different perspectives. So she's not stuck with one piece of evidence. She is cognitively telling you that she's had to do some weighing and some comparisons of different pieces of evidence. So it's not just, hey, this is what I think happened. It's based on the evidence. So she's building support from evidence, which is key. This is what historians do. They make arguments based on and through evidence. What else is she doing in terms of thinking? She's actually made some judgments. And she's basing that judgment, as you said, on who wrote it and how that might impact the situation. The interesting thing about Wounded Knee is that the people that were calling for military intervention, you have to come down, you have to put down the Indians who are participating in the ghost dance, all of them came west as a thank you for getting presidential votes in the past election. It was the first time that they had seen Indians or been on a reservation, and they were very, very emotional in their response. Those that were saying we don't need to intervene militarily were all the generals who were out there fighting the Indians, who were saying things like, maybe if you fed them, everything would be okay. And so she's looked at who's telling us the information to come to those conclusions. What else has she had to do? What other skills has she had to employ? Has she had to read? Yeah, she's had to critically close read the materials that are in front of you. What she's about to do is to take on another student in the classroom who she feels misread the evidence, misunderstood where it was going, and say why he was wrong. But as you listen, continue to think about the kind of thinking skills she's had to employ.
I think Logan misjudged where the people were coming from, and their knowledge on the event. A lot of his information was just simply based on they felt threatened and that the Native Americans were completely at fault and that they fired the first shot and things like that, but they still had no understanding of the meaning of the dance or why they were doing the dance or any of that. They just thought they're all coming together, it's becoming collaborative, and they just saw it as a threat, completely just a threat. That's it. I prefer a history class that I can find my own answers, and I like being able to debate with people over the subject because there's more than one opinion on a single idea. And by being able to discover our own idea, like, we can become more passionate about it because it's not something that we just have to support. History class in the past, it's basically been, here's a worksheet, here's a reading, read it and fill it out. History is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's a lot that you can't do with it just because it's so factual and it's so just, this is how it is. But it's really not enjoyable when all you do is read and take notes on things. I'd say it's more about what the past is about, because what it means is an individual idea. What you interpret something and how you feel about it, that's what it means to you. So in the past, it's just been, this is the way it is. This is what happened. This is what it's about.
Do you think
It's definitely more difficult when you have to interpret and make your own decisions because you have to take into consideration multiple viewpoints and where they're coming from with their information and their past, like how it affects their decisions and where the information's coming from. And it's a lot. It's like a lot you have to do to come up with one idea, and it's just a lot. It's more fun. That makes sense.
And so again, today's message is if you can make a kid say history is fun, doesn't matter what they turn in, you just give them an A. What other thinking skills did she indicate that she'd employed?
She looked at someone else's thoughts critically and evaluated them according to what she had understood.
So she compared her argument to his and was able to pick it apart or question it. All right. And she talks about it. She said that it's more difficult. And one of the things that we know about student engagement is that students disengage for one of two reasons. Either school's too hard, we've set the bar for them and they're just blown away and it's easier to check out, or school's too easy and they just don't give the effort because they know they can end up where they want to be without much effort. Daniel Willingham, who's a researcher at the University of Virginia, talks about finding that Goldilocks point where it's just right, where it's just hard enough to push them, but not too hard where they check out. And one of the things that we know with lecture is cognitively easy. It doesn't push you to do anything other than write and then go back to recall. It's not difficult cognitively, and she says it out there. She says it was harder. But she follows it up with my favorite word, history is fun.